This is a recording of the May 22nd NMRA-PCR Coast Division virtual event. In this virtual event, we focus on the May 22nd auction that's upcoming. I bring your own modeling, as well as looking at a video of the Sturgeons Mill Sawmill that was recorded during the PCR Convention.
Okay, so welcome. This is our Saturday event. This is kind of our plan for today. We're going to start with a little discussion about the auction, then a little bit of show what you're modeling, and then we've got a really cool video that Steve Lane shot at the Sturgeons Mill during the PCR convention. So we're going to actually look at that and kind of have that right as the last kind of schedule thing we do. So with that, what I'd like to do is jump over and talk just a little bit about the auction. It is tomorrow. The address is here. It's 2355 Santa Clara Avenue, Alameda. It's right next to the police station, right next to the City Hall in Alameda. So it's basically downtown Alameda. If you have put in Elks Club Alameda into your GPS, it'll find you pretty good. What you want to do is you want to go behind the building and park. If you haven't been there before and it's first time going, there's a driveway as you look at the building. On the left side of the building, there's a driveway. You take that in the back and there's parking in the back. If you're bringing items, it's a bit of a walk, and there are either stairs or an elevator to get from the parking lot level down to where the auction is. So there may be there may be a cart available or something, but be cognizant of that. Plan is to start about 9 a.m. The doors should be open for item drop off around 9 a.m. 9 a.m.-ish. We actually will have a clinic about 10 or 10:15. We'll be a little bit sloppy about the start because we have a little bit of time there. That'll be our David Gibbons has volunteered to go through installing a decoder in a blue box Athearn diesel engine. So that will be a quick or long clinic depending upon how interactive it is. We're going to have a short business meeting discussion right before the auction, but the idea is to start the auction at probably about 11:45. Really right, it's about 11:30. We'll kind of see where we're at. If everybody's kind of ready, we may start even at 11:35, 11:40 with the business meeting and then do the auction. And the reason is just to make sure we get the auction done early, depending on how many items we have, and the fact that the entire auction group or not the entire group, about 60 to 70% are new. Bob is going to come and be a supervisor, but Jer Ingram is going to run the back office. We have new volunteers. We have some folks that have volunteered in the past that are going to come again, but overall, we just don't know how smoothly it's all going to work. We also have some new auctioneers. We may have new people coming to bid. So all in all, we kind of think it may take a little bit longer to get going and move through the process. So want to start a little bit earlier. Then finally, from 1 to 5, I have one layout on tour. Unfortunately, we were in competition with an opera, and the opera won for the second layout. So as I said, Wayne will have his layout open. He's about a half a mile, and I was corrected because I tend to think in an engineer's way that when you come onto an island like Alameda, you come on from the east onto the island, ergo the island is oriented north-south, and you came from the east, ergo if you make a right turn, you're going north. I was corrected that Santa Clara Avenue actually kind of runs more east-west. So essentially you'll come out and go east, but basically you come out of the Elks and go left and go about a half a mile, I think, and you'll be at Wayne's house. And he has a really cool layout. If you haven't seen it, it's I found it quite, really quintessential California scenery, valley scenery, a mine. He has some really cool automation. He actually did a clinic, if you remember, about how to use the mini panel from NCE to automate parts of your layout. And he actually has that running, and very kind of complicated automation built into his layout. It's also really clean. It was very inspirational. He has a nice hardwood floor, and the layout is all built off the walls so that the floor is very clean and open. So if you haven't been, great place to go. So At this point, it's too late to contact Craig for item cards. You can get them when you get there. That was actually from 2 weeks ago. If you get there, they'll be kind of late. One thing about the auction, wanted to make sure, tell everyone, if you come and you bring an item and you decide you want to leave, go ahead and talk to Jer and we will mail you a check if your item sells. If not, well, I don't know what happens if your item doesn't sell. I guess we figure out what to do with it. But if your item sells and you want to leave, you can get paid later. I guess that's kind of it. If you're interested in kind of doing volunteer on the fly, talk to me or Jer when you get there and want to do something. Trying to do some of the volunteer roles that where we split them up and have 2 people do them. Have one person do them for half the auction, somebody else do it for the second half. So we kind of give people a little bit of a break, but we'll see how it goes this time. We probably just run right through it. Any questions, comments?
Yeah. If you can't find your badge, what do you do?
So,
and I may want to sell something, but I haven't signed up ahead of time. With those two things?
So 2 things there. You know, if you don't have your badge, generally, I think it's going to be fine because we have the latest PC, as long as your membership is current.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that I've had this happen a few times to people. I sometimes mail out, I'm not very good about this, so I should say I occasionally, when I remember and think about it, get the list of people who haven't paid per the NMRA, the people who basically have lapsed in the last 30 days. They're 30 days overdue. And I sent an email saying, hey, just a reminder, you're 30 days overdue. And quite frankly, the only response I've ever gotten to those emails are people saying, hey, I paid already. The problem is, I think from the time you pay to the time it propagates to their system, to the Excel spreadsheet that gets sent to the region, that gets broken down and gets sent to me, which sometimes, by the way, may take a week or so, depending upon, you know, it's all of us that are volunteers. You guys know how this works, right? Shit happens. I get the sheet that was actually from 3 or 4 weeks ago. When it hadn't registered, you'd pay. So that would be the only thing. So if you renewed in the last few days,
no,
it might be an issue. You know, here's the thing, Rich Brennan, I think Rich Brennan's doing it. So Rich will be there. He has the PCR database, so he can look you up if you don't have your card. Preferable to bring your card. If anybody has any issues, you know, everybody knows me, just yell for me. I won't necessarily be able to help you, but I'll be able to figure out who can.
Yeah.
You know, and Craig will have the cards there. The only bad news is, if you show up there to get cards, there are a few cards remaining that are early. So people who get there very early will get early cards. If you get there later, you're going to get later cards. So the way it works is there's probably going to be 400 items. I think Craig kept 25 or 50 cards for on site, but then he starts with people who asked him to get 30 cards. So for example, I got 15 cards because we've got a bunch of stuff from one of our members from the CCON 30 narrow gauge who passed and left a whole bunch of stuff to us. The club went through it, decided what members in the club wanted, a whole bunch of really nice stuff, lots of really nice books and things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring those. I got some cards.
Phil, while we're on this cards, I asked for a card. Now, is he going to have it at the auction? Because I never got anything emailed or mailed to me.
Did you send Craig an email asking him to email you some cards?
I did.
Okay, well, I have to. If you didn't get it, you should have gotten.
Where are you, Wiley?
What you do is you say, you know, Craig, I need 15 cards, and this is my email. This is my mailing address. He sends you an envelope with 15 cards in it.
I never got anything.
That didn't work. Then somehow you guys had a miscommunication. Why don't you send him an email and say, hey, you know, I talked to Phil.
Well, I don't want to be late in the auction and, you know, a high number card. So forget it.
Well, the easy way to do it, though, is then you just go ahead and have a check mailed to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other way to do it. So,
Bill, actually, there was Joyce's question was a different question. If you arrive without a name tag, you of course can pick up a temporary name tag, stick on with your and write your name on it. If you want to get another permanent name tag, I think if you talk to Ronnie at the sign-in desk, she can order one for you. There is a fee, and I can't remember what it is, $5 or something, $10. I'm not sure what.
I think it was
So that
5, but I think she's trying to check into if the costs have changed.
Well, that's okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Phil.
Sorry,
and
Joyce, I was just going through all the auction stuff, trying to go through it for everyone.
Is the auction still in that basement?
Yes.
Okay, is there ventilation?
There is a ventilation system down there, and there's some doors that are open. It's not incredibly well ventilated, which is part of why we moved the one in March to now, exactly because of that. I mean, I think this is when we set it up, we're going to try to distance people in there. And then I think, it's kind of personal whether if you're concerned about personal exposure, I'd probably plan on wearing a KN95 mask. I mean, my wife does that when she does some of her stuff. Personally, guys, I'm not that concerned.
Well, unfortunately,
I kind of look around the room.
Bill, my mask protects you. It's
no, a KN95, the K95 masks actually protect you. Those are the ones that are designed to protect you versus a just regular surgical mask that's designed to protect. And the surgical mask is designed to protect the patient from the surgeon. A K95 mask, which is the tighter mask, is designed to protect you from the environment.
I understand that. But
Right.
if other people are not wearing masks, it is a little less safe. And because of so many of us being older, I'm just concerned about the long COVID. I have several friends who got the COVID and they were fully vaccinated, and now they've got the long COVID.
And I got to tell you, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Getting in a car,
I know.
there is a finite probability you are going to get in an accident and get killed.
I know. I'm well.
The difference here is so the problem. I'll tell you what, guys. I'll be very frank. I had a long personal thought process about what to do here. I went to the open house that they had last weekend that the Garden Railroad Society had at the facility there at Accucraft. And I think the fact is that we moved to the point where the majority of folks are getting comfortable with the fact that normal environments don't seem to be a huge issue. Having said that, there's a finite probability we can't rule it out. I really don't think we're at the point where asking everyone to wear a mask is going to make sense at the event. And if we want, I'm perfectly comfortable with saying, hey, if you want to say, hey, we're going to suggest that we have one side of the room ask people to wear masks and one side can be maskless, I'd be comfortable with that too, something like that. If people want to be self-segregating into masked and maskless, I'm fine with that. But I think that I don't think it's, because we haven't asked anyone at this point or made any statements, and I don't think the Elks has any, as far as I could tell, the Elks didn't have a real provision on it. The Alameda County provision basically is kind of their recommended, but not required. And they're recommended for people that have not been vaccinated, definitely to have a mask. So, one of the things we definitely do is if there's anyone who's not vaccinated, we should ask they wear a mask. Does that make sense?
Nobody will be checking vaccination or anything like that either, huh?
I wasn't planning on it. It's kind of.
How do other people feel about this?
Between us guys, the people that are unvaccinated are the people that are primary. Well, they might be the primary potential introducers of COVID. They're the people who are at the most at risk. So, if you're unvaccinated and you're 70 years old or 75 years old, why would you come to a meeting where there are a whole bunch of people? I mean, if you're unvaccinated because you can't get vaccinated, then probably you shouldn't come to this meeting. You know, if you're unvaccinated and you're unprotected and you can't get vaccinated for medical reasons, then I would strongly suggest don't come to the auction.
I'm fully vaccinated. I'm just wondering,
If you're fully
I've said what
vaccinated,
I had to, Phil, I've said what I had to say. Do other people want to say anything?
yeah, does anybody, I don't know, I'm sorry. Does everybody, is there a,
Steve,
Steve?
you're muted.
I'd recommend just wearing a mask. That's what I plan to do. I know the space, it's kind of, it's not very well ventilated, as Phil said, so.
well, and I'm comfortable with us asking people to wear a mask if they, you know, but I'm not sure telling people they have to is going to be all that effective.
Phil, I don't think you can mandate it, but you can highly recommend it. And we can always try to shun anybody who doesn't wear one.
Yeah, I just don't want to turn it into a point of contention. That's all. And you know, it has become in certain environments. So, enough said.
Mostly over 70.
Well, yeah, no. And, you know, and by the way, guys, was anyone at the PCR convention?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Was anyone at the PCR convention? I mean, is
Oh,
anyone
no.
going to make a comment about what they saw at the PCR convention?
I thought that went well, and I certainly appreciated the opportunity to see people I hadn't seen for almost 3 years, and I'm not aware of any mass spreader of disease in any way, and so I thought it came off pretty well.
I mean, the point I was making was, did you guys notice that nobody wore masks there?
That's
Exactly.
not true. I did, and Bill did.
There were a few people.
And we left
individuals that
early
wore masks, but
because-
the vast majority of people there were not wearing masks the vast majority of the time.
Yeah.
And I did, you know, and that was 140 people from all over the state. You know, again, I think, you know, so this is one of those things. I've just come back to this idea that it's a bit of the probability too. But I'm perfectly comfortable with saying, guys, you know, it's recommended you wear a mask, and there are folks that have asked that if people will wear a mask if you don't mind. So I like I said, at the
I appreciate
PCR
that.
convention, that never came up once. There were people that decided to wear a mask, but I would say that my personal quantitative brew would be that it was 90% plus of the attendees were not wearing masks. And that was for, you know, an extended period in small rooms, small meeting rooms, sitting fairly close together, you know, and again, so and there's a, you know, I think one of the challenges we have, and personally, I do this a lot, is I've been pretty isolated. But when you get out, you realize that the world's kind of moved on a little bit. So, and there's a lot of the folks that are in our division that are not part of what we do on this group that are much more active out there and doing things in public and basically have returned to their lives.
All right, love you.
That's a nice sentiment, but Phil, speaking to me personally, I'm happy to hear an end to the discussion about masks at the auction. I don't know about everybody else.
Yeah, I will. And by the way, I'm going to take this out of the recording because I don't see any reason to have this as a public discussion. It's too hard. It's too damn sensitive. And by the way, I understand everything both ways.
Could I ask a non-mask question?
Certainly.
Are our old bidder cards still active?
Yes. I believe all of the bidder cards will be active.
Okay. I can use my old number.
Yes, but check in. You know, when you check in, you'll have to check in and get your card.
Right, the same way.
It will be a check. There'll be a check to make sure. But what we did is the auction team actually got together and did a dry run with all of the equipment. and made sure that everything worked. And so, because there was a concern because everything had been sitting for 2 years. So we're now at the point where we can bring it in and set it up, and kind of we're doing the handoff from Bob and the kind of previous team to Jer and the new team. Cool. Well, so why don't we get away from the auction and go to what you've been modeling?
Oh, well, I'm here on stage. This is my latest effort.
Oh, hold it up again. Hold it up. Put it up again.
Let's see.
And that
It's
is
a Tichy kit that I have done everything, including adding archer rivets to the ends and all sorts of other RPM standard mods.
cool.
I'm saving it for hopefully having it finished completely by the Bay Area prototype modelers on June 19th.
Cool.
Plug.
I am unmodeling. I'm just digging through the heap of kits and stuff, and I've just thrown a few more items on the stack of things I'm going to bring to the auction. I have no bidder card, I have no badge, I have no tags, I have nothing. I will just try to get there early and deal with it as I get there.
Cool. By the way, David, you might want to check your microphone. It may have changed to some other microphone because it's kind of hard to hear you.
Let's see. Zoom, it's interesting. Zoom once in a while just sort of plays roulette and assigns different mics. Test 1, 2, 3. Is that any better?
Sounds pretty clear for me.
Okay, I turned up the microphone.
That's good. Cool.
So I wanted to letter this Trans-Florida Central kit, and I saw it as probably hand lettered, and my hand just isn't steady enough, with a pen to put a number on it. It's number 39. So I found this font actually on Word, and did use some Walters decal paper. It's the closest thing to what I thought is what someone might do by hand.
Cool.
Thanks, Fran.
I've got a question for everybody or anybody. Anybody know a good source for transfer lettering?
Transfer lettering?
Yeah, it's a rub off.
Clover House.
Yeah.
Overhouse?
Yeah, Clover House.
Are you talking about someone to print it for you or to get the paper for it?
Well, actually both, because I can, if they can do it on a printer, I can do it at home. Or buy it,
So I did a panel on 11 by, I think it was 11 by 17, but that kind of size. And a single decal page like that with a company called Action Graphics up in Vancouver. And basically what you do is you can generate a very high resolution graphic. So in 11 by 17, you get an amazing number of graphic items. So like I had 6 sidebars for all the, it was for ON30. So I had 6 of the sidebars for the top of the passenger cars for the placards. You had like 6 of those stacked, a bunch of different lettering. So you could letter 100 cars, 150 cars out of one sheet. And they charged, I think, $25 to take the graphic and convert it to a printable image, and then $25 per sheet. But the graphic quality is, beyond normal commercial. I mean, I went through some issues with him because I had to learn how to use the what's the graphics package, Illustrator, and we had some issues at one point, and he made the comment that when you open the Steinway piano, that graphic inside is his. So yeah, if you want really high quality graphics, it'll run you 75 to $100 to get a couple of sheets. So if you get a couple of white sheets and a gold sheet for railroad lettering, you have a lifetime supply, but it'll cost $100.
So Phil, was the output a wet slide or a dry transfer?
Dry transfer. And by the way, the key with the dry transfer I found is you got to have a good burnishing tool, and you need to really gently warm the surface that you're transferring to. And then you can get really good adhesion to get them over and get them transferred.
Can you warm it with just
it looks really good. I'll try to find a couple of pictures of them on the cars that I've done, but I did some really small Herald things that were pretty tiny. When you look at them up close, they look perfect. I mean, he did a really good job. Versus trying to print it on my inkjet printer or a laser printer I can get locally, this guy's printing it really high quality. And when you kind of look at it, you look at doing something for $75, what you get. I mean, he cut them in half. So I had 2 decal sheets this size. I mean, I can get them and go show them to you. I just thought it was a good investment. It's one of those things where cheaping out to me seemed not valuable.
You were looking for custom transfers then?
Yeah, I want to do custom in this case, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you want done railroad stuff, Clover House is the best place to go.
Right.
For pre-done, for pre-manufactured, for pre-done ones.
I do have one other project I'll be starting, courtesy of the internet. Here is a bunch of Athearn bay window, SP bay window cabooses. My future railroad will be SP late 1980s, but even though they stopped using cabooses, my railroad will use cabooses. So I'm going to take this batch of Athearn bay windows and strip off stuff to pull them up to the ones I was rail fanning back in the early 1980s, and they'll be on my railroad. So I've got a fair amount of work to do with those guys.
Dave, if you want to contact me off site, I have a group that specializes in SP mods.
Yep.
And I will give you the there's actually, I'll give it anybody. It's a groups.io, espee.groups.io.
Yep.
And that group is you put any question about SP up there.
I actually have done a few cars already and have set a pattern for how these 5 cars will be done. It's so I have the photographs, and I have the, how shall I put it, the modeling simplifications that I've chosen to do. So it's more just simply looking at the cars I've already done and turning the crank to get these 5 guys done. Plus, of course, renumbering them so they're all different numbers. But that's one of my upcoming projects. Thank you, though, for the ESPEE.
Groups.io.
Thank you.
Well, what I think we should do is, I think it's a good time to segue. I realized after the convention, I was incredibly irresponsible because I didn't take any pictures at all. I just kind of almost was so, it was so interesting and to be back in a more normal environment that I just kind of forgot about that, gee, there's probably a need to document this. And so I kind of made that comment and said, hey, if anybody's got anything, send it to me. And Steve Lane said, hey, I made a video of the trip to Sturgeons Mill. And I found the trip to Sturgeons Mill personally to just be incredibly interesting for 2 reasons. One is that's obviously the prototype for the Sierra West model that I think most of us have seen at least one rendition of, which is actually an incredible model. And I think the comment was it took 10 years to do the documentation for how to build the model. And actually one of the folks in the CCCON 30 group actually has built one of those. And so seeing the prototype and seeing how it really works and understanding, I thought was really cool. And so Steve actually made a video. So what I wanted to do is just go ahead and share the video with everyone and run it through. And since he's here, I'm going to let him comment on it, and I'll try to set the volume so that it's good. But Steve, you'll be able to say if you want to make any comments about anything as you go through it, and I'll let you comment versus me. So everybody hang on a second, and we will go find the video.
Yeah, Phil, are you going to stream it from your computer, I assume?
I'm going to stream it from my computer because I'm doing it directly through the Zoom codec. So
yeah, it starts out with a little bit of reading, but it all makes sense when the action starts.
Yep,
Then I'll answer any questions, make some commentary at the end.
And I think it's quiet for the first few seconds here.
Right.
Yonder from the city is a land of burden cream. Some say it's a treasure, but it turns some others mean. There's a place in California, as the logging people know, where the forest fell to plunder and the sawmill made it so. Felling and refining, it requires an able team. Flywheel blades are winding while the whistle blows its steam. There's a place in California, as the logging people know, where the forest fell to plunder and the sawmill made it so. As the sweat pours off my brow line and the dust does make me choke, see the trees all turn to pasture and the logs all turn to smoke. There's a place in California, as the logging people know, where the forest fell to plunder and the sawmill made it so. The sawmill made it so. Yonder from the city is a land of burden green. Some say it's a treasure, but it turns some others mean. There's a place in California, as the logging people know, where the forest fell to plunder and the sawmill made it so. Felling and refining, it requires an able team. Flywheel blades are winding while the whistle blows its steam. There's a place in California,
That was good. That was really cool, Steve. That was excellent to see. Big,
Thank
big
you.
hands up. We give you the thumbs up reactions here. It's
What
was anyone
impressed
else
me,
able to go and see the sawmill was on? Other than Steve and I?
I saw the sawmill several years ago, and took a lady there on a date, as a matter of fact. And what impressed me was that there's a gentleman that owns the mill, and the rest of those people are just a bunch of very hardworking volunteers. And they work like dogs. That is not light duty.
I've got to say that that video is probably better than a visit because you get to see everything in action, and you get the camera was able to get the vantage points.
Yep, very well done. Very well.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, and while I was visiting, I had heard that song before, and the whole time I was visiting the site, it kept repeating in my mind. So I added that as the soundtrack to the video, and I think it works well.
Well,
If anyone-
that video was much closer than we got to see when we were on the tour.
Yeah.
Much better view.
Yeah, well, actually, when we were there, we got to basically stand up pretty close to everything. I mean, you couldn't be in, they've kind of got some little visitor areas on the sides that you kind of get constrained to, but yeah, it was very, very interesting experience.
If anyone models something like that, Scale Structures Limited makes fly belt machinery and virtually all the tools you saw.
Also, Sierra
And
West.
find them. There is a great series of articles in the old narrow gauge and short line Gazette back, I think, in the 80s and 90s. Boone Morrison and crew did on Sturgeons Mill. I vaguely recall them.
And as Phil mentioned, if you go to the Sierra West Models website, they have images of the O-scale kit that was made. And in addition to that, the website's very informative. They have some weathering tips and techniques and some videos, so it's definitely worth visiting.
They used to also have a book about it.
There it
So
is.
this is the Sierra West kit. I don't think I have any pictures of it there. This is a picture of the model.
In much better shape than the prototype.
Anyway, if we one of the things that's interesting is I think if we look at images here, I bet there are a whole bunch of folks that have built that we can find images of those as models, but it's a very interesting model to look at if you get a chance to see one. I think at the Portland convention there were two, and they took first and second place in the national kit category. So, and one of the I'm hopeful when we do the South Bay that I can convince Joe to be open. He has a layout down in Morgan Hill that was his modules for the ON30 group that's now been turned into a garage layout, and he has one of those he built. And I think at one point he said that he figured it took him 24 weeks, a half a year of full-time work to build the model. So working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for half a year to build the model. David, if you've lost our audio, we are all good. I assume we're good. Is everyone else hearing audio?
Yeah.
I'm telling him we're talking about him.
Back in the 90s and very early 2000s, I was fascinated by the North Pacific coast and was attempting to model it in F scale in my tiny townhouse apartment, or at least build the equipment.
Yeah, I think David probably needs to reset his audio system. I think it's a challenge. Well, I had one thing I was going to show. I got to turn off my virtual background. Kind of a bit of messy office for a moment, but that's okay. So this is actually, it's under construction, but I'll show it when I get a little bit farther along. But this is a framing for a building that's going to go on the pier. It was the Standard Oil building out on the pier then in Monterey Bay. And so that's is 3D printed with both, regular framing. I don't know if you can see it. It also has all of the I don't know what that kind of pulling a blank on what they're called, the little stringers there, because it's going to have aluminum siding on it as an outside siding. So when you look inside, when you look down at it from the inside, you'll see 3 layers. You see the support bars here, this bar here, which is a support bar. Then you see the framing, and then you see this this layer, which is is for the siding. And then this is a prototype. I have the printed one's painted, but hasn't been put together yet. So the idea is there's a roof that's a set of pieces that goes together that goes on it. So, and that'll also be done. So when it gets done, you just basically take the roof off and look inside and have some sort of a lighting structure in it. So anyway, coming along with another building on the module I'm trying to get done.
Nice work, Phil.
Thank you. And there's Mr. John.
So I'll just kind of put this out there. I don't know. This is a Shivers O scale ON3 GE model. I got it, I'm thinking 25 years ago when I was starting ON3, before ON30, really hit the market. And so I was just buying and building some models. So it's got a Black Beetle drive in it. And so I started looking for an ON30 Black Beetle. And I found one source, and I can't kind of remember. I've got notes on it. But the Black Beetle drives are like, with this place, I think it's in Australia, are like $140. Makes me maybe want to look at Northwest Shortline, but they're really good drives. They're geared a lot lower than the Northwest Shortline. The other option was for me to take it to the auction and see what happened. But with a $140 drive in it, I'm not sure it's a place. It's something that's for the auction, because I've never been to an auction, one of your auctions, so I don't know how things go there. So
And too many items go for $1 or a minimum bid.
yeah, and I've got a lot of those that I'm bringing.
Well, I think one thing about the auction is that items that have limited percentage appeal in the model railer marketplace. So this is a really pretty simple thought process, right? If 10% of the modelers would be interested and we have 60 people there, that means there are 6 people there that are interested. And one of them, in order to get the price up, 2 of them have to be interested in buying it, right? So, when you go through the math, it's why eBay, by the way, what I just said is why eBay destroyed classified ads, to a great extent, was that, a lot of things that people put in classified ads, there weren't that many people who were interested locally. When you put them nationally and could ship it, there were lots of people interested. So, I think if you bring things that are HO and generic, they have a higher probability of selling. Things that have lower interest levels will get less interest, and that's just the way it is. On the other hand, if you've got an engine like that and you want someone to have it, I can guarantee you that there will be a very happy ON3 modeler. You may not be as happy with what you get, but there may be a very happy ON3 modeler. And quite frankly, if you put it there, I'll try to buy it for the ON3 at the fairgrounds. So, and give it to those guys as a model to build if it's reasonably priced. So
There are a couple usual bidders who buy almost any HO junk, and I swear they're taking it down to the flea markets and reselling it for about 200% profit.
and that's okay. That's okay. They're buying, they're the guys who go to the train shows and have tables at the train shows and sell to the public that want to start doing model railroading, and they buy stuff. It's a good way to do it.
You know, if there's much interest in the group for like some of the old wood kits, wood rolling stock kits, old Varney, and I forget the other makers, but in Ron's stuff, there's, I think, 4 look to me to be vintage wood kits, but they're real, they're real craftsmen. You got to be old school to like them. So, I mean,
Are there any alternatives to eBay? I know there's something called Worth Point or something like that. Or
Yeah,
is eBay the only act in town?
like pretty much.
well, it's the gorilla. So, if you're interested in the getting your stuff to the most eyes, it's still eBay. There's some places, some companies starting up, in rebellion of eBay policies, but they're not getting enough traffic yet to, I think, not getting enough traffic yet for me.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting enough, again, I go back to groups.io, but there's an HO sales forum there that seems to have a huge amount of traffic.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, because I know there's the ON30 garage sale. There may be an HO garage sale kind of group on or something like that on groups.io for HO.
If I can find that for now, just oh.
A lot of people sell stuff on Facebook too, Facebook groups, but there's also a lot of scammers that rip people off on there. So it's kind of, eBay probably has the best protections.
Yeah. The one on groups.io is called HO Swap. And I bought a few items there. And I thus far I know it's pretty well run and tight. I don't know if they have an N gauge, and I don't know if they have an O gauge version.
And that's on eBay, you say?
Groups.io.
Yeah. It's HO Swap is the name of that group.
The group is part of eBay?
It's not an eBay. There's no commission charges or anything like that, or fancy Elon Musk touches.
It's just a mail group.
It's like the PCR groups.io. So it's groups.io. It's the website called groups.io is a place where there are a lot of different groups. There's a PCR group on there, and there's a group called HO Swap. There's also a group called ON30 Garage Sale. And so those groups are places where you can basically post an ad and everybody who's in the group can see it. It's not public, it's just the group.
It's email based.
Right.
Well, it's not really. It's also got an online component. It's what it is after Yahoo Groups collapsed about 6 years ago, some entrepreneur down in San Jose came up with this platform for something. And the reason it's called groups.io, IO being the Indian Ocean as a registration, is that it was available. But the software is pretty is down good for both online and email.
So just this is the groups.io. This is what it looks like on your browser. So this is the groups.io site for, this is the PCR, the PCR group. So what you do is you join groups.io and create a groups.io identity. So I have an identity here. See, I'm Phil Edholm on groups.io. So I've created with my email and a password and identity. So I'm logged on as me to groups.io. Then what I can do is I have a whole bunch of groups that I can participate in. And this one is the PCR group. So, you know, if you notice here, there are just a number of different things, but here's an estate model railroad in Novato, you know, that is available. Here's, you know, just some other questions. So what you can do is there's one, I know there's one up here called the ON30 conspiracy. And then there's one that's the O gauge yard, O scale, it's actually O scale yard sale. So this is a similar to the HO, but this is for O. So what you see is, you know, people putting things in here that are for sale or looking to buy something or, you know, et cetera. So just
by the way, the software is extremely well designed and has some real defenses against spam and other things that could get in the way. I know I own two groups on groups.io, one for plastic modelers and the other related to the attempt to produce parts to convert a Bachmann 280 into a Southern Pacific C9. Real specific stuff. But the platform works very well. It's very defensive. It allows a moderator to vet anybody before they join with their first message to make sure that you're legit. It's really quite well done.
Well, yeah, the PCR for one, for example, when you apply for membership, it's checked against the PCR membership records. So it's basically a closed group that you have to be a PCR member to be part of, or an NMAR member, PCR member primarily. Right.
Hey, Phil, I'm glad you just mentioned the PCR groups.io, because at the beginning of this Zoom, you showed a slide that had information on the auction tomorrow.
Yep.
And Frank had sent out 2 emails. I caught him on the first one and said, you didn't send a time for the auction tomorrow on your email. And I think a lot of people are kind of wondering more of the details of the auction tomorrow. Is there a way that you could forward that to Phil or somebody could get that out to the greater group?
On groups.io or yeah.
Or those members, PCR members who are not on groups.io.
So I asked Frank, it's on the PCR website. So the details are on the PCR website.
At NMRA-PCR.com.
So the problem is I don't have the email list for the PCR. I have the email list for the Coast, which is who I send the extra letter to, you know, the Coast extra email to. I thought I put a response in the groups.io to someone saying something about a red event being canceled, but I can put up in groups.io I can put something up right now about it.
Well, the message that Frank sent out was it listed the auction and a few other things, but he listed an incorrect date for the auction, which was the 21st, which is today, and there was no time for the auction. So it's kind of confusing to those who received his email.
Let me see if I can have him send something else out.
That would be great.
Yeah, let me send something to Frank and see if he can send it out using Constant Contact to everyone.
Yeah, because I sent a note directly to him about what time does it start, and then he may have thought that he put the time in, but it wasn't, and he sent the same confusing email that went out the first time around.
Okay. I'll let you guys talk, and I'm going to go focus on sending an email.
Could I have a minute, Phil?
The stage is yours.
Thank you. For the 4th of June, I believe, is our next Zoom gathering here. And as the so-called clinic chair. I'm looking for somebody who'd like to make any sort of little presentation of any kind they'd like to offer for the 4th of June. If you don't want to respond right now, that's fine, but throw me an email. If you, let me, where's chat? Chat? Hello. Here's the email. And let me know if there's something that you would just like to share with the gang. And that email didn't work. Okay, try it again. There. All right. So yeah, because I'm trying to see if we can get somebody to have something to show. It doesn't have to be, well, we had a beautiful video today, but video, audio, storytelling, mini clinic, whatever floats your boat. Let me know, or let Phil know, of course, and we'd love to have you make some sort of sharing on the 4th of June. Thank you. And Ken, any sign of those etched parts?
I'm sorry, what?
Those etched parts, the etched ladder assemblies. Any sign of them yet?
No, I've got to. I'm dealing with a guy in Colorado, and I've got to make sure he hasn't been burned out, because I haven't heard from him from a while.
All right. Yeah, still looking forward to. I've had some thoughts about how we can make a better jig for soldering those things together. So. Yeah,
I'd love to, because I don't want to release the SP version to people without a really good way of assembling it.
Yeah. A non-obscenity laced way of assembling it. Oh, by the
what
way,
it is in case anybody's interested, in HO scale, Walther's put out this wonderful Southern Pacific C30 caboose kit somewhere around the year 2000. And unfortunately, the end ladders are plastic casting, and they sort of crumble after a while. And so what I've done is I managed to get in with a group of UP modelers who have a similar problem with the Walters model, and they have put me onto somebody who's an etcher who is doing etches for the SP version of the caboose ladders. Anyway, it's I don't know where it's just one of these things that's may have disappeared in the supply chain. But anyway, what it is, I'm trying to get about 100 of these ladder etchings for people who are SP steam era freaks whose caboose ladders have disappeared.
Hey, Ken, it sounded like you might be going to the auction tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be at the auction tomorrow.
I know that you're modeling Port Costa, Southern Pacific Yard, and I've received quite a few photographs from a friend, Charles Endem, Charles Endem did a lot of the illustrations and provided some photographs for the San Ramon Branch Line book. But
Yeah.
he's also very interested in Port Costa. In fact, he wrote a little book about it, co-authored, and did all the illustrations in it, called The Saga of Sacks and Rails or something. I don't know if you've heard of that book.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not interested in putting DCC into Athens blue boxes, so I've got a whole lot of time available.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll bring that folder of stuff that I have for Port Costa tomorrow, and maybe you and I can go through it. And anything you want, I could either scan or loan to you for your project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
By the way, for folks that are experienced with the auction, if I have a bunch of East Coast coal cars Reading Railroad and such, all metal wheel sets and couplers. Are those, should I just put the 9 of them in as one lot? Is that appropriate for the auction? Because I have no idea what to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put them in as a single lot. Don't try to auction them individually.
Yeah, I didn't want to waste people's time. Yeah, I'm looking at all the stuff that slowly ended up on my shelves and going, this car doesn't fit what I'm planning to have for my railroad, and so I'm gonna just move them on to other people that might have a use for them.
Yeah.
The pruning of the inventory.
By the way, I have a suggestion for future auctions. Is it possible that we can have some sort of item card that's electronic so that we could fill it in ourselves and don't have to and then submit it to in advance? What it is, I'd like to be able to type on it on my computer, what all the descriptions and everything.
So here's the problem, and I'll give you the answer, which is the answer I used to do when I was a senior technology / marketing person in high-tech companies. Well, anything's possible. And we'd love to do everything we can for you as the customer. The reality is, at this point, we essentially have a application that runs our auction that, as far as I can tell.
This is for the future application.
Right, okay, for future applications. Yeah. So here's the deal. When we get to redoing the auction, we have to do is look at what the web stuff is available. And that may be something we can actually do, is have something that says that we're going to print auction cards out at a certain time, and instead of the auction cards just being printed in sequential numbers, some number of them be pre-printed with information based on some sort of web entry. It's a much more sophisticated application than we have now. I mean, the interesting thing about the application we have now is it has no idea of anything except for the number on an item. It has basically the only thing the application keeps track of is item numbers, bidder numbers, seller numbers, and amount.
Yeah, I understand the current application is somewhat limited.
It would end up being that we have to really go in and say, okay, we're going to create a database, and we're going to have
yeah.
database.
No, I would definitely want to build a database app for a future one.
Right, and that's the whole thing. Well, this one's built in a database, but it's built very simply, is I guess what I'm saying. It's not the database, it's the how do you get things into it from the web. It's building the web interface to be able to get things live into a database, because that has to be in the web, it has to be on a cloud, it has to be live all the time. In other words, for a member to go in and enter something, you have to have a way of getting it in. And I don't know, we have to think about how to do it. I mean, the one way to do it might be to think about if there was a way to do it as a block of numbers on a PDF that was created as a set of fields on a PDF, and you can enter there and then send the PDF in.
I could design the app. I used to do this all the time.
Right, but the problem is then we have to pay for a server to be live all the time.
I think we might find something to do that.
Okay. Well, I think we'll
maybe a cloud service, but
well, that's what I'm saying. That we have to buy a service
No, you don't want to buy a server. You want a cloud service.
That's what I'm saying. We have to buy the service. We have to purchase a subscription service. I mean,
well, development I can do on an IBM PC, but as I said, export it up to a Google Cloud app.
Right. Yeah, and so the interesting question becomes, the minute you say you want to run some part, if you're going to run it as a data entry for sellers ahead of time, and then that's going to be in the cloud. Then you say, okay, well, why don't you just put the app in the cloud? And then what you have locally at the auction location, basically
Download for the auction.
Internet connected.
Download for the auction.
What? Yeah. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to run the system we have today. The software that's there is written in an application that is not supported any longer by Microsoft.
No, I understand.
No,
I'm not talking about today.
All I'm saying is we're going to get it to run this time. The thought process is we can probably use it for at least 1 or 2 more auctions beyond this. If not, we could for more. But now that we've got this working, the question is, do we want to pull a committee together and think about changing the software? And, if we're going to do that, how do we want to, what other things do we want to do? We need to pull a group together and think it through. But I think now we know and we have documented what the current software does, which we didn't have before.
And that will be a great functional base to analyze in order to determine the functions to be included in a future app.
So what you do is we're going to take that. That's written as a business process spec.
Yeah, the business process design first.
Yeah, if we want to change that and say, we want to allow data entry by people ahead of time, that has an implication on the application, but it also has a much bigger implication on the process of getting things printed. Because right now, basically printing up the labels is printing up a block of things that the only thing that's in them is a number. And so from a standpoint of data transmission, we don't have to capture data and try to print out things with the data. The current ones get printed out just as essentially as a standard. And
Phil,
so
I understand the limitations of the existing. I'm not even thinking about it.
Right. No, exactly. It's just we got to come back and think about it. So, cool.
I have another stupid question separate from this software issue. If for me with the doing the clinic and having auction stuff but no preparations, what time would it be recommended I get to the venue?
Try to be there about 9-ish.
Thank you.
8:45, 9-ish, probably good.
I usually try to get there by 9 just to get a parking place.
Question about is this the badge? I found this PCR badge and it's the old leather kind. Is this the badge they're talking about that we have to have?
That's a good badge. It's a valid badge.
Okay, good.
I think the newer ones are phenolic. I think at some point we migrated from dead animals to plastic. I don't know when that was. I have a funny feeling, Joyce, that in some way having a leather one might in fact date you. But beyond that, I think it's perfectly acceptable. And some of us might be, quite frankly, a bit envious. Those of us that have these flimsy plastic imitations of what was a quality leather badge at one point. I'm just teasing. Yeah, I think it's fine. The whole thing about it is that the auction was set up and the structure is set up where it is only open to members. And there are a whole bunch of reasons for doing that. And so we have to be somewhat careful to make sure that we're covering that. And we did have a concern. There was a concern early on that if the software didn't come up right, we could lose the database of who was assigned auction numbers already. And we would not have an auction database. So we would have been in the position where Sunday morning, everyone would have had to come in and get a new number and be verified, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad the search, it was on an old shirt. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Great.
I'm done.
Joyce, I just want to let you know too, I answered your question in chat about who the band was and the artist. And
Yes, thank you very
in the
much.
Sawmill video. The artist is Greg Graffin, and it's off his album Millport, and the song is Sawmill.
Yeah, it was great music, great
Thanks.
video.
Glad you liked it.
Really good job.
So PCR NMRA group this morning posted that the Cajun division has a Zoom event coming up May 26th. And I clicked to register it, and registering it took me to a registry site called Magnify. And I believe it's like investment related marketing. But anyway, so going through the registration for it, they're asking for everything, every piece of information, including social security number.
Oh.
And it may have something to do because it's somewhat investment related, but I don't know why Cajun Group is using this. So anyway, so I did not put social security number in. I did not put my phone number in. I did not click save and continue. I did not click submit. 10 minutes later, I got an email saying that I registered successfully. So, I mean, there was a big fear there that, you know, what's going on, or that I could not attend the Zoom. But all I put in was my first, last name and my birth date. And I left the screen. I'm still looking at the same screen. And I got the email saying I successfully registered. Anyway, it looks like a nice event on that.
Somebody's got a link in there that you hit by accident.
Oh, really?
Yeah, phishing. Somehow it says a phishing link.
Yeah, what I clicked was groups got log. Okay, well, I'm successfully registered, and it looks like a nice, there's three breakout groups in it. One's on scenery, one's on operations, and one's on electronics, railroad electronics and track wiring. And that's on the 26th of May. And I found it in PCR and NMRA groups. That's it.
And what's interesting is it actually shows you who's attending on the website.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Oh.
I'm really disappointed that they didn't include their social security numbers on that list.
Well, maybe if we click on them, we'll get their social security number. No, I don't know. I think it was
doesn't have me
somewhere.
I see it doesn't have me listed on the senior.
It doesn't have you listed on anything here.
That's because you didn't include your social security number.
That you should have entered a fake social, so then you could have gone to the next, because they wouldn't know the difference.
Huh.
Well,
You know, sometimes when you use a software platform, there's they have all sorts of hidden links that'll take you into different apps.
yeah, this Magnify is all about finding investments.
Sent me a message saying, I want to invite you to multimedia over
I think they must have faked you out with something. I get 16 points.
That's the one he wants to do.
16 free meal points from HelloFresh. Something again, I have to take out of the video when we put the video. I put the video up. But yeah, that seems to work. It's interesting, you didn't have to log in or anything. And I did show up in the list now. Interesting. John, do you have any exciting projects to tell us about? Harass him since he's here.
I have some unexciting ones.
And exciting ones. Well, I guess it's probably time to go ahead and bid everybody adieu, and we will see everyone tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, just a aside, in case folks didn't notice, O Scale West is next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So if you're interested in O Scale, chance to go to O Scale West. Lots of interesting layouts on tour, and other than that, I think it's probably time to call it a day.
Okay, guys, good meeting.
Cool, thanks. Have a great one.